Welcome to Tuesday Tea, the space where we get real, get honest, and talk about the things that actually matter. I'm your host, Alicia Bakker-Mudrock, therapist, Pilates teacher, coach, and author of Leading Lady Energy.
And I'm Melissa Levine, educator, coach, and your co-host for the conversations that don't shy away from the messy, the meaningful, and everything in between.
Each week, we sit down with incredible humans, leaders, creatives, parents, dreamers, people who've lived, struggled, succeeded, and figured things out the hard way.
We share stories, ask real questions, and highlight the badass people out there doing the work.
So grab your tea
Or your other favorite beverage.
and let's dive in. Hey everyone, we're so happy to have you back here today. One of our last few Tuesday teas for a while. It's just the ending of a chapter, but we can't wait to have you hear from Jenny again. She was one of my first guests, and now she'll be one of our last. Jenny is such a special friend. We have the most absurd story of how we know each other, but basically the universe is like, you guys will meet and be friends. And I've had the pleasure of befriending her, working with her. She's this inspiring mentor of mine. She's brilliant at what she does, and she's also just an incredible human. So happy to have her here today. I'll let her give you a little bit of a more full introduction and background, but she's an awesome human. So buckle up. There's going to be a lot of wisdom in this episode. And we're going to be diving into this topic of loss, grief, kind of just like where we're at now, how we're moving forward. I think we're all feeling it in some different various forms. So I'm going to let her take it away and we'll dive in as we go.
Before we get all formal about shit, I just want you to know I have your star-crossed friends love note on my desk, and half of it is like all blurred, like faded out because of the sun.
I love that.
But just sharing with you and Melissa and everyone watching and listening, like really, truly, all the stars had to align for Alicia and I to become friends.
Yeah.
It's meant to be.
A funny story.
So yes, hello, I'm Jenny Hughes. I'm a trauma psychologist, and clinically I work with adults doing lots of work around PTSD and trauma. And I also am the founder of the Brave Trauma Therapist Collective, which is an online community membership for trauma therapists that was kind of born out of grief, which I guess we could start there if you want.
Sorry, my cat's meowing in the background, so ignore Walter. But yes, I would love to hear a little bit more, like for people that don't know what Brave is, kind of what inspired it, and you're doing so many things with it now. So
yeah, so it started in a lot of ways as a COVID project. And so, we were all going through all the things at that time. And for me, it is related and connected with my own grief story because my dad died in the first month of the pandemic. We're actually like 7 days away from 6 years. And so it's just really, really deeply connected with that for me as well. Totally.
Well, I'm sorry for your loss. I know that, yeah, it doesn't matter how long it's been. It's like that. It's still there. And like around anniversaries, I would imagine it gets a little bit refreshed, if you will.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, we talk about how there's no timeline to grief.
Mhm.
Then even as it comes around every single year, I'm like, what the hell? Why is this happening again? Like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I so kind of like knocked off kilter and so incredibly irritable and just want to isolate and not talk to anyone and lashing out at the people that are my greatest sources of support, right? And so it's just like, I don't know, grief is just so weird. And even, like for me as a psychologist, as a trauma psychologist, it's like there's these other parts of it of, for so many mental health professionals, we have this internalized stigma that we're supposed to have all our shit together, right? We're supposed to have like figured it out and taken care of things.
Yeah.
Coupled with how hard it is for anyone to ask for help, let alone people in helping professions, which Melissa, you are as well. Like, God forbid I fucking ask someone for help. Like, I was at brunch yesterday with a friend and giving her like a little like pep talk about asking for help. And then I was like, and by the way, like, I'm the worst at this,
Totally.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And then this year's been weird because a month ago, my husband suddenly lost one of his best friends that he grew up with. And so there's like other layers of grief in our house. And it's weird because like I'm trying to support my husband. And so then it adds to some of that, like I don't want to be a burden stuff, right? And then I also know it feels really good to help other people and he wants to support me, but it just is like really confusing and convoluted right now. And I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I'm just in the middle of it and trying not to make predictions and doing my
Which is
best to
really
let go of
hard.
control, I guess.
Talking it
Control.
through like
Oh my God,
today.
I
Really
know.
hard. Oh, my old nemesis, control. Yeah, that's really hard. I would also imagine that seeing someone that you love go through grief is like probably a little triggering because it's like you're remembering your own grief and like your journey. And I mean, that's never over. Like, no matter if it's like a day or 6 years, like you're always grappling with that loss in some way. I have found, let me not speak for you all, but yeah, that's really hard. I think though you're hitting on something when you said like it actually does. Sometimes I make decisions for people like that's too much for them. And it's like,
Mm.
let me stop. Let me ask or like ask someone if you have the capacity or like I'll add that caveat. So it's like it's out there, but it's also no pressure because sometimes I'm like hurting my own feelings by like overwhelming myself because I don't have help. But I actually like have decided that someone doesn't have the capacity, but never even asked them. And so as like a recovering perfectionist, people pleaser, this is something I am really working on is asking for help. And I'm happy to report the other day, I was noticing my daughter just felt like I could just tell she needed some one-on-one time. The twin thing is really hard. They're always together as a single parent. I'm always with both of them. And there's never any time where it's like someone will take one and I'll take the other. And so I asked my boyfriend, I said, would you mind taking Jackson somewhere, like just this weekend, whatever you can do it. And I just needs to spend some one time with her. And he
Yay.
did it. And it was awesome. And it was so fun. And so I don't know. Sometimes I think I also it's therapeutic to ask for help because your people will surprise you, not even surprise you, like they want to help you, right? Like that's not surprising. But sometimes we have it in our head like they're not going to be able to do it because maybe
Mhm.
we have scars of people that haven't helped us in the past. And so I don't know, every time you do ask and it goes well, it's almost like that reinforcement of good. Who like I can ask for help next time. I'm probably still going to have a favorable outcome. And even if I don't, I can still do it and I can still ask and advocate for myself.
No, that's huge.
So yeah, I just had to share that because I was really
I also
excited
think something about
by that.
grief that's hard is there's such a clear bystander rule because there's nothing you can do to fix it. It's like not a solvable problem, so to speak. It doesn't have to be a problem, but it's not a solvable. It's something that like you have to go through and that person's going to be on their own journey and there's nothing you can take from them to make it better or do for them or whatever. Like it's truly, you're just watching. And there's forms of support, but it's not a solution. And I think for those of us in the more helping professions or those of us who like to fix things, or those of us who don't want people to have bad emotions, that's what makes grief, I think, sometimes the hardest, even with clients to sit with, because I don't have like a good even skill. Like try this and it'll kind of fix it for help for a minute. Like it's truly the thing that you just have to be in. And that's really uncomfortable. And especially in a society where we don't even talk about death and dying well, and we don't talk about like grief is not normalized. It's negative, even though
Yeah.
it isn't, but like we make it seem that way and all of the things. So I think that doesn't help. But I feel like for me, that's the hardest is like that truly that bystander role and being okay being in it too. You know,
So one of my favorite clips to show in talking about being
from
with
drinking,
emotions is, do you know what I'm going to say?
but also great one.
No. Oh my God, that was really
Okay.
good there too. So this is even pre-shrinking. So it's just from Inside Out 1. So among all the things that I do is I supervise pre-doctoral psychology interns. And even though clinically I work with adults now, I actually am trained. I always came up as like a child person in my training. I was an infant mental health person. And then Alicia and I met at the Level 1 Trauma Center in New Orleans where we were working with adults bedside after traumatic injury. And that kind of started to like veer my course more towards adults. But in Inside Out, spoiler alert, it turns out that the hero is Sadness, right? And she actually is the one who saves the day for Riley, the main character. And there's this scene, you can just look it up, Sadness and Bing Bong, just like put that into YouTube. And this scene where Bing Bong, who was Riley, the kid's imaginary friend when she was little, he's so sad because all of the child parts of Riley's brain are starting to shift more towards like tweener, like preteen, and then like getting ready for adolescent stuff. And so all these different things in her brain, like, you know, the like candy castle thing and like all that stuff are going away. And he's realizing it. And Joy and Sadness are on this mission to get the core memories back to her brain and stuff. And he's so sad. And Joy is like in the background.
Right.
She's like,
Right.
it's okay. Don't worry. It's going to be all right. Like
Like
look,
the
we can
toxic
do this.
positivity.
Like all this. And it's
Yeah.
so annoying, right? To like watch it. Yeah. And then Sadness just sits right down next to him and is like, this is so sad. Right. And
Uh-huh.
he's just like, it is. And he starts crying candy. And then you like laugh a little bit because it's cute. But her just sitting there and being with him in his sadness helped him kind of move through the beginning, middle, and end of that moment. And there's going to be lots of moments of sadness, especially when we're talking about grief. And even if you've never even seen the movie, just that clip, it's like 2.5 minutes long, can really be really impactful on your nervous system of like, oh, I actually don't have to do anything. I can just sit with someone as they cry or as they scream or
Right.
as we
No,
like zone out and
it's
watch a
so
movie
true.
together.
And I think too of the shrinking one is the one I think of when he has her put the song on for however long. Is like, this is your sad song. You can be as sad as you want for this song, and then you're good. Because she was having a hard time just ever letting the sadness in, and it was like a contained way. And I always think of that one as well. It's another helpful reminder that even in the midst of stuff we don't have power over and that we can't control, and that feels really big and scary. And I mean, let's be honest, we're all going to die. I mean, maybe some people don't believe that, but generally speaking, we're going to die. And that's scary. And we're constantly kind of living our lives like outrunning this thing we all know is coming, or like our pet will die or someone else and we all just don't want to acknowledge it. And we're like, la, 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 it's fine. And it's also terrifying. And so I think just kind of sitting in some of it and being with uncomfortable realities or moments, they don't have to like be the thing that drives us forever. But the more we try to like block stuff out, like Joy's doing in the background, the louder that other stuff will get, or the bigger and like under the surface, versus just holding some space. 10 minutes, 5 minutes is better than 5 years of not acknowledging something and then it having been this like low-lying anxiety in the background, the whole time. What do you think you're doing?
Yeah.
Like, because you've said you're not the best at asking for the help or whatever else. Like, what do you feel like you've been sort of maybe like forced to do or get better at with like the different events that have compiled over the last few years? Or what's something that maybe you've discovered that's like not as traditional, but it's working and it's helping, like a different mindset or a different thing? But kind of how are you reconciling something you're not very inclined to do naturally, but knowing it's good for you or knowing it's helping you and doing it, so to speak?
So asking for help from people in my like immediate life is still very much a work in progress. And in building something like an online community for therapists, I've had to have an online like presence myself. And I've gone through this process of building a business and building an audience and doing all the things. And through that, over the years, it's been about like 5 years really since I started the process of building the business, for almost 4 years since we first opened. And through that, I've had a lot of opportunities. I've had a lot of invitations towards being vulnerable in very public ways, just like this. And it has been something that initially was really scary for me, like especially as a mental health professional. In grad school, we're basically told, like, don't even have a social media account, let alone, like, don't tell anything about yourself, right? We have to be this blank slate and all of that. So it's been this interesting process of going totally against everything that I'd been taught and advised. and experiencing what it's like to lean into that and to then also connect with so many people across the country and across the world, honestly, who also have had similar experiences or can understand different parts of kind of some of my stories and are then now part of like an extended support system that I have. One thing I have to be aware of though is that with that, sometimes it can be deceiving. Like I can trick myself into believing I'm doing the asking for help thing when I'm actually not. And so that's why I started with the asking for help from the people that are actually in my immediate life is still very much a work in progress.
Yeah.
But no,
No, I felt like that was going to be a really good question too.
I was like,
What's
what
the trick? I know. I was like leaning in. Well, she'll be back and she can ask her trick question. But what I was thinking when you were just talking about and sharing about, like, there's these two pieces I'm hearing that you have, like, you have to ask for help and you do need the support. And community is like a way of being a support in a sense. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people can resonate with that. Like, it is helpful no matter where you are on your journey of asking for help, having a community in whatever capacity that looks like, right? Like for you, you've built this really awesome community and that's really special because I imagine there's just things that other trauma psychologists like will only get, right? Like there's just some things that no one else in your life is going to fully get. They can be there for you. Like you don't really get it, right? But so like that's really valuable. And I think that there's something to that. Like, yes, ask your people for help, but also make sure you have a community of people that gets you on some level in a different way. Cause I think that, I don't know, we're just wired for connection so much. And I think sometimes I know for myself is like, I do tend to isolate when I start feeling anxious or overwhelmed. And, it's those the connections sometimes that are like not even the super close people to you. Like I've had some people that I've developed connections with on social media that like we have now we don't speak, we don't really see each other, but like literally they have like reached out to me at like really down points in my life. And I will like never forget that because I don't know, that was like a lifeline for me at that time. And so I think there's value in, yes, your people, ask them for help, but also like create community in different ways that can also support you and help you through grief and good times and all of the in between. Because that resonated with me when you were saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think, I mean, community is just so much at the heart of not just what I do in Brave, but of I think how what I have realized is necessary for me to have good quality of life. So like when I moved from New Orleans to Houston, I was miserable for at least like a year and a half. And then oddly enough, it was during COVID that I started to actually kind of meet people and develop some community here in Houston. We had just bought our house at the end of 2019 and then, COVID started in March 2020. And our neighborhood was one where a lot of people were outside and they were just walking and like, so we got to meet all these neighbors that we probably wouldn't have met otherwise because everyone was stuck at home and had to get out like so that they weren't losing it. There was that. There was having a kid community, right? The people that you meet through having a kid. For me, yoga is really important. So having a yoga community, but it takes time to build these things. I've now been in Houston for like 8 years. And it's only just in the past couple years that like my yoga community has really felt that I've felt more connected with them. And so giving yourself time to allow for these layers, these overlapping kind of concentric circles of community in your life to start to come together and know that they're also going to come and go. So not every space, we don't need every single space, every single connection for forever.
So
Right.
true.
Right. As someone who's also moved 1,000 times and it sucks. I mean, it's fun and it sucks to build up new communities and friendships. I think my biggest golden rule is always like, not everyone is going to be for everything. So I have like my own mental list of the types of friends or connections I need. I want someone I can just grab a drink with. I want someone who I would trust with like the garage code to my door and like come into my actual home and not fuck up my house or steal my things. I want some people who'd be down for like a really good meal or have like the finances to like enjoy a certain level of things I like. I want people I can go work out with and say hey to every few days and do whatever. Sometimes people overlap, but I think sometimes the biggest problem people have when they're trying to find their community is they're trying to make every checkbox fit for every type of community. And that's unrealistic because we as humans aren't going to be like one thing to everyone anyways. And there's beauty in having lots of different types of communities. And I think if you take the pressure off of it all needing to be everything, like they have to be your deepest, closest friend, like they don't. You might, like Melissa, you might only talk to them once in your life, but they talked to you at a specific time and that was fine, right? Like you don't need to like become besties with that person just because they sent you a nice note when you were going through your divorce or whatever, right? Like, and just taking things in stride and letting things kind of be what they are. But you can find the things that fit those boxes when you start looking at them that way, instead of everything has to be everything. And I feel like it's a very freeing way to try to build friendships or community, especially if you're in a new place. And even if you're in the same place for a million years, it has its own cons. You get used to stuff. You're in your own ruts. You have your old friends. So maybe it's thinking of like some new communities you could form, but they're not going to replace your other best friends of a million years, but they will maybe serve a different purpose that you're not getting from that current one because it can't be what it isn't. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think a lot of people will hear that and connect with that. I think I have been guilty of trying to like force things to be the level that I maybe like want them to be or maybe think they should be, but like they actually don't have to be that. Like Lisa, you and I have talked about my work friends. I was always someone that like had really close friendships at work because like I've always had really like heavy job. Like my role in education is fucking wild and like heavy, and the schools I'm supporting are not like, they're heavy a lot of times. And so I don't know, maybe that's where it came from, but like just because you made a really good friend in grad school that you ended up working with and you really are still good friends today doesn't mean that every work friendship is going to be a friendship. It may just be a work connection. And so I've started to try to like do some, I don't know, like reworking of like my mental models of like what those connections need to like look like, feel like, sound like. And it is hard to like let go of that idea, but I honestly think it makes it better because you're not then like holding on to like something you said, like trying to like hold on to it so tightly, and really it's just draining you in ways that like it doesn't need to drain you. You can have like, oh, this great work connection and like be friendly and really enjoy each other and go out for a drink after work, and that can also be where it ends. Like it doesn't have to be like a super deep friendship. And yeah, like sometimes it's disappointing when you thought you had it and it isn't, but at the end of the day, just like the expectation piece, I think if you adjust your expectations or go in realizing it doesn't have to be the be all end all every relationship. So I think that's really smart. That's a really good outlook.
Not everyone can be an Alicia Jenny work duo.
Right? I know.
So true though. And honestly, so much of my like I hurt my own feelings a lot because I'm like putting these expectations on things, people, situations that just aren't fair. And like
it's hurting. Like you said, it's hurting more than it's
right.
helping.
Exactly. And so a lot of it, it's just like releasing my own shit, and not holding people to this standard in my head that like we've actually never agreed. They've never agreed to that. Like
Right.
you know what I mean? And so
Right.
I think that's I
I was
just
like,
know that
bitch,
about
I'm not
myself.
going to be your kid's godparent. I'm cool. I just wanted to get
Yeah.
a martini with you. You're like, what? Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think part of that's like when you're an empath and you are giving so much to people, like you do expect a certain level back. But like I just have realized that like not every friendship is going to be that level. And it's just not, it doesn't behoove me to give energy to people that way when they're not giving that energy to me back. And that's okay. And I can just say like, yeah, you're a great person and I enjoy you. And like, you're not going to be like one of my people. And that's okay.
Which kind of connects with what you were saying, Melissa, about like asking people about their capacity,
Yeah.
right? In any given moment, we have to be aware of whether we're explicitly asking them or not. We do have to do our best to be conscious of those things, to be realistic about it, and to not expect the world from everyone because people aren't capable of that, and that's not personal. It's okay. Everyone is
Totally.
really doing their best, I think,
Doing
for
their
the most
best.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Totally.
think to tie it all together, people that see you, Jenny, probably doing your things online or whatever else, like unless you've shared it explicitly, don't know all the loss you've had or all the grief that's going on. Like they have, these opinions or these things or what you should show up as. And they also, I think we don't remember how much other shit is happening for people behind the scenes often that we don't know about. And we don't give people enough space for the full story. We don't always have to know it all. Like, it's not necessarily our business, but like, remember there's always like 80% of a question mark that you don't know about the person in front of you in line at Target who's being like a lot, or, the kid behind you on the plane who's doing the most, or this individual who's yelling at you from their car window. Like, not saying these things are necessarily okay or whatever, but I think we forget that there's like a human behind that too. And just as much as we have behind our surface, people don't know what I'm going through any given diet. I don't know about them either. And I just don't know that we give each other enough grace sometimes.
So true.
Just as like humans just wandering the earth. Some stuff, no grace, but a lot of stuff we need more of it. So.
And
No, and I
even
think
on
it
the
goes-
flip side of that, I have lots of things on my desk. If anyone could see it, like, it's a shit show over here. But no one gets to see that because you just see my pretty little background. I have a client, like, I just learned so much from my clients, right? And I wrote a note to myself about what she said to me a couple weeks ago. She's super successful in her job, and she is married, but she and her husband both have very demanding jobs, and she ends up being responsible for most of the childcare. And she's like kicking ass in her job and succeeding. And also she was like, I'm burning the fuck out, not because necessarily of the workload plus the childcare, but she was like, no one is witnessing my success. And so she was just recently won some awards and was like, okay, like now people are seeing my success. And it was not out of narcissism. It was very healthy for her, like acknowledging these things. But I wrote down to myself, it's so fucking hard when no one sees you succeed. And I was like, it really is. It's both, right? Yeah. It's when, like, as a business owner, when it feels like I'm screaming into the void, but people think I'm like doing amazing, or when I'm just like crumbling and like falling apart and feel like I'm drowning, and no one knows that that's happening either. It's really weird. And so in what ways are we allowing ourselves to be witnessed? Right? That's part of it. That's a big thing, like I've been saying I'm working on. In what ways are we asking people to witness us? And in what ways are we letting go, kind of like we've been talking about, of the things that are just not in our control?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I love that idea though of like we need to like also, if we bear witness to something, like say something. I think there's so much power in like there's so many cool things that I see women do. God, I love women. And I mean honestly, I wish I loved women like that way, because my life would honestly be so much easier. I truly feel. However, I very much love men, but women are just so cool and they're so dynamic, and there's just so many incredible people doing so many incredible things. And so, when you do have the capacity, just like a quick like or comment on somebody's like content or story, or like a quick text, like, I just wanted to let you know I see you. Like, that is so powerful. And I feel like sometimes we just assume people know they're doing really well. And like you said, Jenny, like sometimes we fucking don't know because we don't have anyone that's actually telling us. And so, I think when you can, it's helpful to like pay it forward and do those things, because it's just it's so empowering and wonderful to hear that you're doing well, even if it's from just like someone on the internet sometimes. I know that sounds crazy, but also it's making me think of this idea of like the expectation setting and like the boundaries piece. And like the same way that Alicia, you just said, we don't often give people grace. I think sometimes we're not protecting ourselves in like ways where we could say, actually, I don't have the capacity for that. Right. And so I think it's like two sides of a coin, where it's like, we need to also be generous and kind and give other people grace, but we also need to be careful and protect our space, time.
Totally.
I just had a situation recently where I set a boundary with my mom for, you guys, honestly, probably the first time in that way, like very clearly. And I was so nervous. I had to do it when I was in New York with my two best friends, because like I literally wouldn't have done it. And that's so unhealthy. But I felt like it was easier to just not do it. But honestly, that's not the case at all. We all know that it's not the case. But yeah, I said very clearly for the first time, like, that's actually a boundary I'm setting. And like, I hope you can respect it. And it was really hard for me and difficult for me, but I did it. And I think it's like, and it's both and, right? Like, we have to like give people grace and assume the best of humanity and understand that people are coming with a lot of stuff, but also honoring all the stuff we're coming with. And like, there's a time and a place where you don't want to do something and you don't have to, But you have to communicate that to people because, again, like we can't expect that they know what we have the capacity for and don't. So I don't know. I've just been thinking a lot about that. And like, I feel like that's a sort of a symmetrical thing, right? Like the expectations versus the boundaries. And so just something
And
that,
also, no shame that you were leaning into your community with your friends in New York to get this done.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, one thing about me, Jenny, I'm a lot of things, but I'm very self-aware and I know like what I am going to be able to do and what I'm
Yep.
not. And so I knew I needed that like social pressure almost too. And plus like, it's like when you tell a friend I'm going to go work out and then you're going to go work out because you know they're going to ask you later and you're like, fuck, I have to go work out
Or
now.
they're going to be there, right? Oh,
Totally.
yeah. The only reason I get up, not the only reason, but the main reason I get up to go to yoga at 5:30 in the morning
Yeah.
is because my friend is going to be there. And now I'm friends with like
Totally.
the owners of the studio too.
Right.
So
You're
then
like,
I'm like,
well,
shit,
they'll really
now I'm
know.
going to let my teacher down.
Yeah.
So that social pressure is there. And I know not only like, I know boundary, I'm not an idiot. Like I know boundaries. It's not like, oh, I set a boundary. That's it. Like it's often like a long process, especially when you have to like undo some unhealthy boundaries that were in place. And so I know now that they know they're going to follow up with me. They're going to say like, oh, how's it going? Like,
Yeah.
have you had to reset that boundary? And so, yeah, it was tough, but I think I feel in a way, like I felt like nervous and I also kind of felt some relief. And so both of those things existing at the same time is weird, but very,
It's real.
yeah, just you guys brought that up for me when you were talking about those things. So,
Well, Jenny, I'm going to have you close us out with a last takeaway that you want people to ponder on as they go on their day.
I mean, it's got to be the asking for help stuff, right? So remembering that it's okay to ask for help. It does not make you weak. It doesn't mean you're not strong enough or not good enough. And maybe even more important that people want to help. They feel good when they help, right? In helping and healing spaces and professions, we call that vicarious resilience. And it's Melissa, you were talking about it too, like with your friends supporting you even just in New York. It feels good to help other people. So asking for help is actually giving back to people. And so maybe kind of take that and try it on for size and see how it maybe feels different.
Love it. And I'll be sure to include any links that you want to pass along, your socials, your website, things like that, if folks want to get in touch with you. And we really appreciate you being here today. And
Thank you both
with
so much
us.
for having me.
thank you.
see you guys later.
Hi, everyone.
Dude,
Thanks for hanging out with us on this episode of Tuesday Tea. We hope something here landed, encouraged you, or made you feel a little less alone.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow, rate, and share the podcast. It helps more people find these stories.
And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. It really supports the show.
For more ways to connect with us or learn about what we do, check out the links below.
And until the next cup, keep the tea hot
And